cease any further disruption.
Well, we certainly got our fill of drama, didn't we? But I really don't want that to obscure 3 things that I think we can take away. Well, we just took in a truly wild ride watching Donald Trump's first address to Congress in his 2nd term, and there are some things that I really don't want to get lost in the mix here. But first, the pageantry, the drama, the showmanship was alive tonight. And there's no one I'd rather discuss the drama with than our own Steve Morris, host of Margin of Error and writer of the best newsletter around, the Recount newsletter.
And there's no place I'd rather be.
Let's break it down. Have you ever seen anything like this before?
Longest speech to a joint address of Congress
By
ever.
a lot.
More studded with Maury Povich and Oprah than Bill Clinton and George Bush.
It was, you have a special prize under your seat, Oprah moments that seem to be floating around. It's normal to have guests in the audience, obviously, but did you feel like the pageantry was turned up to 11, Miss USA?
I mean, we were talking at one point when he was talking about the U.S. apparently, allegedly, we have yet to see confirmation of it, caught a terrorist.
We have just apprehended the top terrorist responsible for that atrocity.
And at one point it seemed like he was going to be like, and he's right behind me
Well,
right now. He's coming in. You know?
He's on his way here. And we were like, here?
And he is right now on his way here to face the swift sword of American justice.
Yeah, here's the thing. States of the Union joint addresses are always drama and production and pomp and whatever, but this was that dialed up to an 11, both from Trump and from everyone in attendance.
Yeah, there were a lot of special guests, from children to a 95-year-old who he used her being the mother
of
of the recently rescued hostage from Russia. And she just so happened to be from Butler, Pennsylvania, where he was shot. So she was, as a 95-year-old woman, a perfect segue for him to talk about something that had happened to him on a fateful day. Yeah. That was an interesting segue, wasn't it?
I mean, it is crazy that the current president and the nominee of one party was shot at. Like, that's still
Absolutely
wild. It is. So I don't know that we have a precedent for like how a president ought to talk about that.
Yeah. And his boots were down from the beginning, but so were Rep. Al Green's.
Yeah.
Cowboy boots, likely.
Yeah.
With orthotics. He is old. But he got up there and quite literally man shaking cane at other man who will have a cane later, and got thrown out. This was when you kind of turned to me and you were like, oh my God, this is different. Yeah. We have not seen this before.
Yeah.
What was going through your head?
I mean, I was just a little bit like, holy shit, this is happening. Which,
stay calm.
I mean, it's just like, it's so emblematic of the whole thing, because it's like, this is objectively crazy and ahistorical, and also like not at all surprising. Like, of course this was going to happen, Al Green has a penchant for the dramatique.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that it was him, but I mean, they kicked his ass out. That's crazy. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene, when she interrupted Joe Biden, didn't do it to such a degree that she got removed from the chamber.
No, and they had a back and forth conversation basically in that room of 1,000 people, and his ass was carted out. We'll talk about the Democrats and what they did or did not do in 1 second, but first I want to talk about what all of this crazy chaos drama was kind of taking away from. And that's 3 different conclusions that we'll come to. 1, Trump knows something about the economy.
Yeah.
In a way that we may not have all realized that he knew or would acknowledge before.
There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this earlier. This is a guy who, like, you have a packet of salt that he gives you, and he says it's the best salt you've ever had. Like, it's the saltiest salt.
It.
We got it straight from the Himalayan mines, a special mine that only some people get to go to.
No children.
And that man who is so good at selling even the most mediocre things as fantastic was preemptively, actively saying on multiple occasions, bear with me on the tariffs. There's going to be an adjustment period. There was one other thing he said, multiple times alluding to this idea of some sort of economic pain from what is a centerpiece of his economic policy, which I mean, if that chief cheerleader is talking that way, that's maybe a little bit of a sign of danger for Republicans.
Have you ever heard him talk like that before?
I mean, every now and then, it's funny, you get these like bursts of self-reflection or self-awareness that come if you watch him long enough.
Yeah.
But
Blink and you'll miss it.
But for a stage this big, talking in that way about something that has been his centerpiece economic thing since the 1980s was a bit wild. And I mean, it fits with, we've seen the Dow drop. We've seen corporations start to cut back on investments. We've seen the Atlanta Fed say that forecast contraction for the U.S. economy in the first quarter of the year. Like, there are a lot of red flags out there. And now the president is starting to talk like he knows that they're there.
It's funny, though, because he had another moment in time where he was like, nobody knows if this was the worst inflation of all time. Like, nobody knows the answer. And it's like, so he will try to have those moments of like, no, the lucidity is not catching me today. Let me just go on and say it's going to be great. It's going to be better than ever. Then he also has these other moments of claiming to not know what the information is, or straight up saying at one other point, he was like, if we don't do these things that I want to do on the economy, we won't have a country anymore.
Yeah. I mean, for all I guess my main takeaway on this was for all the rightful ways that the conservatives of the U.S. might be able to point to the liberals and say, you were too insulated, you missed the warning signs, you didn't listen to Americans enough. This was a bit of a sign to me of a party charging straight forward, perhaps not learning the lessons that Democrats learned from not listening to people yelling about prices in 2021 and 2 and 3 and 4. You know?
Yeah. And maybe 25. Keep going now. So that's like our second thing that I want to talk about is, okay, Al Green gets thrown out. And I'm sitting there. I'm going, okay, who's next?
Right.
Literally, next contestant, get up and start yelling. That never came. There were murmurs
here and there.
Some sign waving, some fist shaking, but there was not a second interruption. And that to me is reflective of this larger thing of they can't decide on what path to chart. Like it's anybody's best guess which way that Democrats are going to feel when they wake up this morning, tomorrow morning, on and on from here. What the fuck is going on? Like, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is the kind of thing that, say the economy crashes or prices continue to rise and
God
Democrats
forbid.
win in 2026 anyway. Maybe they beat the odds and pick up a Senate seat or two. Is anyone going to remember that Democrats couldn't really figure out their response to Trump's first joint address? Probably not. But that is betting a lot that Republicans will kind of self-induce a defeat of some sort, you know?
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier, like, I think the confusion, the indecision, the lack of a clear choice was exemplified with the color choices that were going on. There was a lot of reporting out there that Democrats were split on whether to color coordinate at all. And then of the color coordination, some were choosing to wear black to talk about the dignity or the severity of the moment. Some were choosing to wear pink for women's rights. Some were choosing to wear blue and yellow for Ukraine. And it was just kind of a mumble jumble of a lot of different messaging. Yeah. And that is part of that is a little bit like when you have this much to work with like Doge and with billionaires in the cabinet and with
a wealth of
sending
options,
people to Guantanamo
truly.
Bay, you know, it's a hard thing to do in some ways, but I don't know that they chose something clear.
No. And when they do choose something clear, it oftentimes misses the mark. They had this crazy video that came out the morning before the speech, and they being like 20 plus members of the Senate, which frame for frame was the same in each of their videos, sitting down and crossing their legs at the same time, saying like, shit's not true. Which, I don't know, if you're 85, I don't really know that I feel that you'd speak that way, honestly, in your core, in your soul, unless you're Bernie Sanders. And it failed spectacularly on the internet. It flopped. So I do wonder of like, the Democratic base is unhappy when they're in disrepair, disunity, bifurcated, whatever. But they're also going to be trolled and made fun of when they do show an example of unity. So that leaves them in quite the conundrum of where to go from here. This takes me to number 3. And this is where actually most of my questions exist. Republicans, you were saying, have kind of planted their flag on cultural issues, and that's where they seem really united. And the economic issues, less so. We're going to see that play out in real time in terms of this government funding bill. We have about 20 minutes till the government shuts down. We're going home from here and it's going to be gone. How do they move forward with this?
Yeah, we were talking a lot about when you look at the big applause lines, the times that every Republican in that chamber stood up and clapped, it was for when Trump was talking, as he did a lot, about trans participation in sports, about schools socially transitioning, kids under 18, about immigration, which for a huge segment of the electorate are big issues. Where there was not as much agreement is like, what do we do about tax rates for the pass-through carry provision? What do we do about tax rates for the richest? What do we do about balancing the fiscal impact of no tax on tips versus the fiscal impact of cutting the Department of Education budget? Like, there just is not consensus there.
No.
Part of that is when you win via a coalition that brings people together. So part of this is just like the kind of price you pay when you win, which is what you want to do. But I mean, as the bigger thing, of course, the government is set to shut down soon. The bigger thing is tax rates on every individual paying income tax in the United States are set to go up at the end of the year on December 31st. And if they don't pass a bill to change that, they will go up on everyone. And they haven't yet figured out not only what they want to do, but the way in which they want to do it. So we're a long way away from consensus on that. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't know that that might be a red flag.
Can I have a hot take and you'll tell me if this is like totally off the mark?
Tell me.
And maybe this is Captain fucking obvious here. Like Senate Republicans, I think, are a little bit of a threat to Donald Trump compared to House Republicans who they can clean up their caucus. The margins are small, but you know, we saw the whip around for the vote last week. They got their people in line where they needed to, except for the Lone Star Thomas Massey. Senate Republicans, I'm a little bit more, jury's still out on it. John Thune today, Senate Majority Leader, was like, I hope these tariffs are temporary because they could be pretty bad. Mark Wayne Mullen, I also think the tariffs could be pretty bad. Rand Paul, I think it could be really bad. Like, that's more criticism than we're used to from House Republicans. Is that a hot take or is that obvious?
I think you're getting, like, part of that is the way senators versus members of the House see themselves.
Yeah.
Senators are like, have a superiority complex down over members of the House. So I do think you're right that, like, there's a lot of them who will be like, that's cute, that's a good idea, Mr. President, but we're gonna try this, which is what happened with Obamacare in 2017. The House sent over their bill, the Senate said, nice, but we're gonna start from scratch, and then that didn't work. It ended up imploding. I think that, I would kind of split the baby and say the biggest threat,
the baby
is that
don't do that to her.
Is that don't gender the baby? That the Senate might pass something that the House finds not conservative enough, and then it goes down in the House. Yeah, it's just one of many scenarios, but it's going to be something to watch.
I'd kind of bet on that horse, honestly. I'm not a betting man, but I would bet on that horse.
Go to predict it.
We're going to have 3 more states of the union. I mean, let's assume so. All tradition and decorum and whatever kind of flew out the window tonight throughout the Capitol Rotunda. So who knows what we'll expect in a year from now? Maybe we'll look back on this video and be like, damn, they were so right on. Or
naive,
dumbest bitches alive. Until then, you can catch us right here on The Recount. Him with Margin of Error, me with What the Fuck America. Hit that bell, leave a comment, like, subscribe. Tell us your thoughts, your dreams, and we'll see you next time.